So we'll get everybody in here. And then I wanted to review some of the material you guys covered Thursday. Without me, the arm. If you have a planner nearby, you might want to write down the goings-ons. We have a quiz. Friday, it'll be a labeling quiz. So you guys got experience with the labeling when we did skeleton. So we'll do a labeling quiz on Friday, covering muscles of the arm that you did Thursday on your own and muscles of the trunk that we're going to do today. You guys, I keep calling, I just think the end of the week and I keep calling it Friday. Our Friday is Thursday. Okay, so we are going to have, I probably have the wrong date then in the Google Classroom, it's posted. So we'll have a labeling quiz on Thursday. Let's see if I can change that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of the things that you covered this past Thursday that I just wanted to make sure to clarify: origin and insertion. So the origin is on the immovable bone. That is how it will be described on a test. It is on the immovable bone. And the insertion is on the movable bone. Some relationships between them: all muscle action is produced by pulling on the insertion, okay? So though I'm giving you the origin and insertion for all of these, you don't have to memorize the individual, very specific origin insertion. You should be able to reason them out, okay? Whatever joint is affected, the origin will be above the joint, the insertion will be below the joint. So as we learn all of these muscles, picture a string running from the origin to the insertion. When you pull on that insertion, you should see what action is produced. Okay? So origin is kind of like an anchor, and the insertion is the pulling point. On the PowerPoint, the questions that you guys had to answer, lad snore was the most confusing thing. So lad snore is a mnemonic. Muscle names tell us something about the muscle. They might tell us where it's located, L, like the frontalis covers the frontal bone and the occipitalis covers the occipital bone. A, action. So you guys talked about the flexor digitorums and the extensor digitorums. So the name tells you what it does. It flexes the digits or it extends the digits. D is direction of fibers. Today we're going to hit some direction of fibers. Rectus means that the muscle runs straight up and down. In your eye and around your mouth, you have orbicularis. They're going in orbits, going in circles. Obliques, we're going to talk about today. They go diagonally and transverse goes sideways. N stands, S is shape. So today we're going to hit a few different shapes. Like the delta is the Greek letter or the Greek triangle, right? N, number of insertions, or I'm sorry, number of origins. So like the biceps brachii has 2 points of origins. The triceps has 3. Your quadriceps have 4. O is for origin and insertion. So it's named according to its origin and its insertion, from its anchor to its pulling point. The brachioradialis. Sternocleidomastoid. That's a good one. R is relative size. So when you have a group of muscles that you're comparing that are in the same area. So like you have a pectoralis major and minor. The major is bigger than the minor. Gluteus maximus and minimus. Maximus is bigger than the minimus. You have longus and brevis muscles in your arms and legs. The longest is the longer of the two in the group. The brevis is the shorter. So you should be able to decipher something about the muscle just based on its name, okay? So you guys had a slide that looked kind of like this. And I wanted a specific name of a muscle, and you only like had 7 to go from your lecture. So location, maybe you identified the biceps brachii because it's found on the brachii. Direction of fiber, that's today's. You guys didn't have a direction of fiber. You had an origin and insertion, so you probably identified the brachioradialis. You had an action, so you probably identified flexor digitorum. And what was the fourth one you guys had? Letting somebody in here. Do you remember which one I'm missing, Max? I got action, direction. Oh, and you guys had number of origins. So you either put bicep brachii or tricep brachii. So I wasn't looking for one muscle and then you tell me these 4 things about it. I was looking for 4 different muscles that use this in their name. Okay? And we're going to do that again today with today's muscles. So any questions about lad snore? It's a mnemonic. I usually ask you an essay question for this one. Like last time you had to identify, 5 different synovial joints. In this one, I'll ask you to give me a muscle that is named for each of those letters. Okay, so today we're going to get into muscles of the trunk. You have a student version of the lecture available for you if you'd like. Whether you fill it out now, go back and see if you can fill it out later, quiz yourself, or skip it altogether. That's up to you. The last 3 slides, 1, 2, 3, that's what I'm looking at for today's points. Okay, so at the end, we're going to fill these 3 out before you guys ever leave. And then Wednesday, you're going to do a gizmo. So gizmos are like simulations. So this is going to review a lot of what we've already covered. It's going to let you explore the organization of muscle tissue. You'll get a little bit into that sliding filament that you guys did. And then also that whole concept of muscle produces action by pulling. So you'll be investigating that concept. You will be kicked out in 5 minutes unless you enroll in a class, okay? So you might already have a login if you've done a gizmo with another class. If not, you'll want to do a login. But when you click on the link from Google Classroom, it'll open up the Explore site. You will have to click enroll login, and then use this class enrollment code in order to get into the gizmo and not be cut off after 5 minutes, okay? So my biology kids, they are sending me messages all the time. It cut me off after 5 minutes, and we've done it a number of times. So you'd think they'd catch on. So so that is not an uncommon mistake. Okay. Questions on the agenda? Thanks, Zach. You're the best. Who are you talking to?
I was talking to my mom.
Okay, so that's fun. So we're going to put that away now and get into the PowerPoints. Oh, do you want me to review the muscles from Thursday, or do you guys feel like you kind of got it? I see a thumbs up. So the big thing with the muscles of the arm that I wanted you to notice, one of the slide questions I gave you, is all of the anterior muscles are flexors. Flexors mean they decrease in angle at a joint. So everything on the front side is a flexor. Everything on the back side is an extender. It increases the angle at the joint. Okay. So let's move on to, I'm going to get rid of my floating controls because they are always in the way. Hide floating controls. So we got rectus. I don't know why we start with the very first one. So you guys have this slide set if you want. We're going to come back. We're going to do this together at the end. So, so fill it out or don't fill it out, the rest of it. It's up to you. Sorry, I thought I was on the first slide. This is a preview. Okay, so every muscle we do this chapter, we're going to be looking at insertion and origin and function. okay? You should be able to identify the function simply based on its origin and insertion, okay? Describe the function of each muscle of the trunk, recognize descriptions of the muscle themselves. That you will see on the big chapter test. Labeling the muscles of the trunk, you will see Thursday on our quiz, the trunk and the arms. Okay, so the first one we're gonna do is deltoid. So this is named according to L. No, it's not. This is named according to S for shape, because it's the Greek letter delta, which is a triangle, okay? So it covers your shoulder joint. The origin, notice the clavicle here. It's the last, so it's the distal portion of the clavicle, and also the acromion process. Remember, we followed the spinous process until it flattened out on top, the acromion process, and the spine of the scapula. So you have kind of a long insertion here and on the back side. The insertion, I'm sorry, long origin. The insertion is a single point on the humerus. Since the insertion is on the humerus is the bone that will be moved, right? So always picture a string from the origin to the insertion and then pull on the origin and see what action occurs. So if I pulled from here on my arm, it's gonna pull my arm up, okay? So we call this an abduction. An abduction takes a body part away from the midline of the body. So if you had some dumbbells and you were lifting them, I don't know what this is called. Is this a fly? Anyways, that would be an abduction. Children are abducted from home. They're taken away. Some people may say they were abducted by aliens. They were taken away, right? So abduction is taking a body part away. Okay, so I would not ask you to memorize lateral third of the clavicle and acromion and the scapula, but I would say like the muscle that moves the upper arm likely inserts on the, and so remember, movement occurs at the insertion. So if it's moving of the upper arm, it's inserting on the upper arm, okay? Pectoralis major, so this is a relative size, right? You have a major and a minor. I'm only doing major for the diagramming. I'm not doing deeper muscles. I'm only doing superficial muscles, the ones on the outside. So the pectoralis minor is like a deeper muscle and it's smaller, obviously. So you can see this big fan-shaped muscle of the chest. And again, it has a very long origin. So rather than having like a tendon, like your bicep has a tendon, this has this sheet of connective tissue. They're called epineuroses. Okay, so this big sheet. And its origin is all along this area. So you can see the entire sternum, part of the clavicle, and down to the first handful of ribs, okay? So very big origin. Insertion is on the deltoid tuberosity. A tuberosity is just a bump on a bone, okay? Those bumps are ideal for attaching ligaments or tendons to bones, to muscles. Okay, so you can see that's kind of towards the top of the humerus, the proximal end of the humerus. You could think of it that way as well. So now when we picture drawing this arm, the insertion toward the origin, okay, I'm going to be pulling the arm towards the midline. And you can isolate, big muscles have different regions. See how these have diagonal and this is straight and this is diagonal. So depending on the different areas of that muscle that you isolate, you can have different actions. So if I'm isolating that middle portion, it's going to be straight across. So a forward movement. You are adducting, moving the arms towards the midline. The trapezius is a trapezoid, so again, named according to shape. Look at all of this origin. It's all along the midline here. So occipital bone, cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, all the way down. Scapula, and then it's going to insert on the clavicle and the acromion process. So if you're a marching band, this is my marching band muscle, because when I was in marching band and we had to stand at parade position, we were always shoulders up, back, down. And that is what this muscle is going to do. It's going to bring your shoulders up when you isolate this section. It's going to bring them back when you isolate this section. It's going to bring them down when you isolate this section. Okay, so this is called a retraction, bringing the shoulders towards the back. Bringing it forward would be a protraction. Backwards is a retraction. So I can raise the shoulders like a shoulder shrug. I can draw the scapula backwards because the majority of the muscle is underneath this origin. You can anchor here and pull the head backwards. So that's a movement as well. Okay. Any questions so far? 3 muscles. I was told I went too fast last hour, so I want you guys to slow me down if you need to. So this is showing you the 3 different sections here. The upper trapezius can flex the head laterally to the side when you isolate one side or the other side. The middle portion is drawing those shoulders backwards, and the bottom portion is bringing them down. Now, I should have some knives to show you this. The serratus anterior is named according to its shape and its location. It's on the front side of your body. You also have a serratus posterior. I'm only doing the anterior. Serratus means jagged. So in the kitchen, you have some knives. Some of them are smooth blade. They're good for cutting fruit. And some of them are serrated. They're good for tearing tissue, muscle, meat. So serrated is referring to that serrated edge, the jagged edge. And what causes it to be jagged, it's this muscle here that we're looking at. So notice that it is coming from each of these individual ribs. And so those origins create a jagged appearance. So it's going from your rib cage to the back of your body. So it's going posterior into the scapula. And then it pulls the scapula forward as it brings that insertion towards the origin. So that's your protraction. Also, rotating the scapula, rotation is a movement about like a center point or an axis. Okay, so we can see the first 9 ribs, which is all of our true ribs and a couple of our faults, and then inserting on the scapula. Good. Latissimus dorsi means broad back. So latissimus is broad, dorsi is referring to dorsal, so it's a location. It's referring to the backside. So again, you have this aponeurosis connective tissue here. See, it's a broad sheet. This is like the wings on your backside. And then swimmers, they have very well-developed latissimus dorsis. You probably have done some lat pull downs if you've been in the gym at all. So it's named right with the muscle that you're using. So you kind of already have an idea of what it does. So notice the origin. I'm in the wrong spot, sorry. Down here. So the last few thoracic vertebrae, all of your lumbar vertebrae, and then sacrum and iliac. Okay, so all of this is its origin. And then it's pulling on this point underneath your armpit, basically the proximal humerus, so the head of the humerus. And since I'm pulling from behind, it's going to bring my arm behind, right? It's also because I'm pulling from a lower point, it's going to pull my arm down. So that's the adduction. Antagonistic muscles, you read about those or Thursday, right? Antagonistic muscles provide 2 different actions. So the deltoid abducts the arm, and the latissimus adducts the arm. So they would be antagonistic. Any questions? Okay, the stomach, the rectus abdominis is what you probably call your six-pack. So you can see it's a long sheet of muscle here. Rectus is referring to the direction of the fiber. It's going straight up and down. Over here, you can see how they're going diagonally, these muscles. That's oblique. Here's your serratus anterior. Notice how jagged they look. Okay, so I'm looking at this strap of muscles along the front side of our abdomen. Originates on the pubic bone and it and then runs upward. So its insertion is on the coastal cartilage. So that's the cartilage that connects the ribs to the sternum and the sternum itself. So when this muscle is contracting, it can bring the insertion down, right? Which causes a flexion of the vertebral column. So it's decreasing the angle from a 180 to something less than that. You can exercise one side alone, and that creates a rotation about the center point. Okay, I can isolate the bigger portion above, and I can raise the pelvis in a pelvic tilt. Any questions on that one? Rectus abdominis, straight. Okay, external obliques along the sides, diagonally. You have an external oblique on the outside, internal oblique on the inside. They go in opposite angles. Transverse, even deeper than that, side to side. We're only doing the external ones. So external oblique, diagonally, anterior surface of the last 8 ribs, moving forward, coming on the ilium. So the iliac crest. It's my dad. The iliac crest. So this aids in trunk rotation. Again, the muscle will tilt or rotate about an axis, or a lateral flexion. So that would be side to side. So rotation would be like a twist. The flexion would be a bend. Okay, external obliques. Where are my controls? What questions do you have over those? This is all flashcardable information. You want to practice naming them on yourself to internalize it. You want to practice doing some diagrams. I linked a couple to the quiz. Oops, I didn't in this hour yet. I will do that as soon as I get off the phone here with you. It's a Zoom, it's not a phone, but you get it. What questions do you have on the PowerPoint? Do you want me to go back, go over any of it? Because I know I talk fast.